Welcome to the Sports Angle, live in Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world. I'm your host, Rachiele. Let's get into it. My guest at this time, Dallas Oliver from Scoreboard Sports on WBTN 1370 AM. How are you going? How are you doing today, Dallas?
Doing pretty good.
Now, when it comes to football, there's always expectations. There's always all of these predictions and all these spoilers and everything that goes on in football, and that includes college football and the NFL. But we're going to focus on the NFL because it is Football Friday here on the Sports Angle. So if there was one team that you would consider a favorite to win the Super Bowl, to win the championship this year, who do you think that would be, the favorites to win the championship heading into the 2021 season?
Well, we know how hard it is to repeat, and the last team to do it was the Patriots in 03 and 04. But with that being said, I think I would have to go with Tampa Bay. Just being in the dominant fashion that they won it last year. They're the first team in the modern era to re-sign all of their major starters from the prior Super Bowl. They all came back on hometown discounts, citing wanting to play with Brady. And he did that in the COVID year with no offseason, no OTAs, and learning a new team on the fly. Now it's his second year with all his guys back, and he has more continuity in it. I don't see how you could pick against them.
Well, here on the Sports Angle, I am going to pick against them because there is one team that I think is a favorite, a team that a lot of people have been watching, and shout out to all the people out there in the Rise Up family because they're definitely going to get excited when they see this. And this is the Buffalo Bills. I understand the whole trope about, Buffalo, they don't win much. I know about the whole cliche that they're Buffalo, they're not supposed to win. But with this team that they have set up, and I give a lot of credit to Brandon Beane for this. In fact, later on here on the Sports Angle, we're going to do a ranking of the general managers. And I'm going to say Brandon Beane is definitely top 5, but we'll save that for later in the show. So with Brandon Beane, with all these things that have happened in Buffalo, Josh Allen, upgrading the running back, having the best wide receiver in the NFL in Stephon Diggs, the Buffalo Bills have done it the right way. They have built that team, and they built it from the ground up. And that's what I like about this Buffalo team. They're kind of similar in a roundabout way, a loose-fitted way, from the New York Giants in the late 2000s, early 2010s. New York Giants built themselves up from the ground up. And obviously they got 2 Super Bowls. Obviously you would know about how the Giants won those 2 Super Bowls. So the Buffalo Bills, I believe that they have a really bright future. The odds back it up. And I say the Buffalo Bills are going to be a favorite to win the Super Bowl. But if you had to pick a second team, if there was a second team on your list that you had to say, all right, if Tampa Bay somehow doesn't repeat, this would be the team that I would trust. This would be a team you'd walk into a sports book, put $100 down and say, all right, this is my team. Who do you got?
The Rams.
Los Angeles Rams. The reason why?
I believe they've been you hear the phrase, this team is a quarterback away, or there's just one player away, but oftentimes it's not true. I believe the Los Angeles Rams are that team that has been a quarterback away. No knock against Jared Goff, but he was a guy that wouldn't lose you the game, but he also wouldn't win you the game. Very much in the Alex Smith in Kansas City type. They replaced him with Mahomes. He put them over that hump. I believe Matthew Stafford is the guy that can win you the game if he has the pieces around him to win immediately, which he does now. And he's not past his prime. He was just stuck in a team going nowhere in Detroit.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you're in Detroit, Michigan, out of all places. Of course you're going to be stuck there. So as we're talking about NFL favorites heading into the 2021 season, here on the Sports Angle, I'm your host, Rachiele. We're here with Dallas Oliver from Scoreboard Sports. I'm going to go with a surprise pick here, and this is going to surprise a lot of people. This is going to stun a lot of people, but I'm going to say the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns defense is one of the best I have seen in the last couple of years. Their offense has been steadily built. You trade away Odell Beckham, who's been a locker room cancer, and I don't know how this team would be able to not make at least the AFC Championship game. because the Cleveland Browns have so much talent on both sides of the ball. All they have to do is get rid of that cancer in the locker room, and I think they will be set. So Buffalo and Cleveland, those would be what my favorites are to win the NFL championship. You have Tampa Bay and LA. Ironically enough, you pick two teams from the NFC. I picked two from the AFC. Now we're going to transition into what are a team that you believe will improve the most in 2021? A team that, maybe had a couple wins last year, but this year they've made the right moves in free agency. Maybe they've gotten rid of a general manager, maybe gotten rid of a head coach, and they've replaced that with someone who is the right choice. So who in your mind is the most improved team heading into the 2021 season?
Well, it would be easy. It would be easy to say my Patriots because of the wild spending spree they went on and all the draft capital they have. Obviously, they're going to be steadily improved, and hopefully they've plugged up a lot of their holes. I could say that, but instead, let me go with another AFC East team that a lot of people are going to snark at. I'm not saying they're going to win the division. I'm not saying they're even going to finish outside of last place. They'll still be in last place, but I believe it'll be a last place with 6 to 7 wins. I'm going to go with the Jets.
New York Jets. All right.
I mean, they're definitely not making the playoffs. It's just that division has 3 potential playoff teams, 1 definite and 2 potential, Miami and New England. But the Jets, I feel good for their fans. I feel like it may not look it right now with the results that you're seeing on the field, but the team is built as soon as the Super Bowl ends and the new league year starts. The team is built behind the scenes and in the front offices for the things that the fans can't see. It starts with hiring Robert Saleh. It starts with the new coordinators. It starts with finally getting some weapons. You pick up Corey Davis. You put him in next to Crowder. You got a healthy Denzel Mims. Maybe you pick up a running back in the draft. They were finally able to start working on their defense again, adding Vinny Curry from the Eagles, adding Sheldon Rankins from the Saints, really just making the smart signings, not over the top pricey signings, but the ones that are going to solidify their roster, and they're young enough where they can piece them in with their other young players and hopefully form that core that they need to start moving forwards in the right direction.
As we were talking about teams that could improve the most in 2021, here on the Sports Angle, I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. We're here with Dallas Oliver from Scoreboard Sports. Now, the Colts, the Chargers, there are teams out there that have made really solid personnel moves, but I'm going to go with the New York Football Giants. I really like what Joe Judge has really done. I think what they have done in that system, helping Daniel Jones, helping Saquon Barkley, bringing in a guy like Kenny Golladay, and more importantly, having a 2 tight end set. On top of that, their offensive line has been bolstered. Their defense, they've been making solid moves. I have said here on the show before that I would not be surprised if the New York Football Giants somehow won that division. And of course, Cowboys fans wanted to rip my head off when I said that, but I'm just being real. I would not be surprised if the Giants won 9 games, 10 games this year, and somehow won the weakest division in all of football. But if I had to say one more team that I think has improved a lot, I'm actually going to go with a kind of obvious pick, but I'm going to try to explain it more in detail, and that is the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, them adding guys like Patrick Peterson, them bolstering up that defense out there in Minnesota, the fact that they have been talking about getting more weapons and getting more people for Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook, that offensive line. As much as it pains me to say it as a Chicago Bears fan, I think the Minnesota Vikings could be a playoff team this year. Green Bay and Minnesota both are most likely going to represent the NFC North. I like what they've done this offseason, so I'm going to go with Minnesota, and I'm going to go with the New York Giants. So before we go to break here on the Sports Angle, we have to talk about the opposite of improving, and that is declining. So what is one team that had an amazing 2020 season, but they're going to be declining? It could be because they lost a lot of players in free agency. It could be because they lost offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators to another team, so they could become a head coach personnel-wise. Who is a team that declined in 2021? Who do you think that's going to be and why?
Can I offer 2 teams?
Oh, you could say 2 teams. Go ahead.
Okay. So we'll start with kind of the obvious pick, and then I've got a shocker. But the obvious pick, I'm going to go with the Saints. I think everybody saw the writing on the wall. People said Breeze wasn't going to retire. Well, just the way that he walked off the field after they lost to the Bucs in divisional, it was clear he was taking it in for the last time, even though he took so long to decide. He was gone. And I think everybody saw that coming. So that left you with either Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill, neither of which I feel are very viable options. So who knows where they go in the draft. Then they just started unloading the team. They started having like a Belichick blow up of the team. Both the tight ends, Cook and Hill, gone. Sheldon Rankins, gone. Alex Anzalone, out the door. They just, all the stalwarts on their defense, and there's talks of them getting rid of Teron Armstead or Ryan Ramczyk and Emmanuel Sanders, out the door. That team, they just didn't have the salary cap. They were aging. They saw they weren't going to be competitive with Winston or Hill in that offense, even with all the weapons they had. So they figured it was best to start tearing it down, much like what New England did last year, and to start getting younger and try to move forward in a cheaper alternative to get back to that spot in another few years.
All right, then who would the second team be? Who would be the shocker?
Well, everybody, I guess everybody loves Tom Brady now. I know everybody loves the other number 12 in the NFC over in Green Bay coming off an MVP or Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry, Packer fans, and you ripped my head off for this. I got to say the Packers are going to decline.
When you say decline, are you talking about not winning the division for the 940th time in a row?
They will win the division, but they will
Okay.
not be getting a bye in the playoffs. I do not believe they will win a playoff game.
Okay, you know what? We've actually are going to agree on that. I've said this here on the Sports Angle before, that there's a difference between a Super Bowl contender and a playoff contender. The Packers are going to be playoff contenders for sure. Now, the 2 teams I'm going to pick, I am going to go with the Saints. I mean, it is very obvious that they are rebuilding. They know that their window has finally closed. But the second team I'm also going to go with is kind of a obvious pick, but I'm going to say it for the reason outside of their quarterback situation, and that is the Houston Texans. You have dysfunction in the general manager. You have dysfunction in the executives. You have dysfunction even when it comes to picking a head coach. The Houston Texans, I believe that they have even hit worse than what they did last year, which some people think it was rock bottom. I'm saying that this year will be the absolute rock bottom. I won't be surprised if they only win 2 games next year. Maybe they'll win 1 game next year. Because the Houston Texans, they did make all these free agent signings, but they were like, these C grade, maybe B minus type of free agency moves, bringing in veterans, bringing in guys to fill in holes, but none of them were really absolute shocker kind of moves out there in Houston. So I have the Texans and I have the Saints as 2 teams that are going to decline. So here's what we're going to do here on the Sports Angle. I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. We're here with Dallas Oliver from Scoreboard Sports. When we come back from break, we're going to continue with our NFL conversation. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Sports Angle, live in Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world. I'm your host, Rachiele. Let's get back into it. We're here with Dallas Oliver. Now, Dallas Oliver, tell everybody about your show, where they can find it, and what is it?
Okay, so I host a 1-hour all things sports show once a week on Tuesday nights. It's from a local AM radio station in Vermont. It's called Scoreboard Sports. And we take all kinds of call-ins. We talk March Madness when it's going on, MLB, college football, NFL. And I got a co-host that knows all about NASCAR and motorsports. The call-in number for anyone listening that wants to call in during the shows, Tuesday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. West Coast, goes for 1 hour. And the call-in number is 802-442-1010.
There you go. That's all the information for everybody who wants to check out his show, check out all the content he has on there. So back to the Sports Angle with your host, Rocco Rachiele. Now, this is a live in Las Vegas show, so obviously the NFL odds, the sports books out here have a huge impact in what we do here. Now, I'm going to talk about certain teams and the odds that they are at, but what I want to do is I kind of want to ask if you think that they're being overrated or underrated. That's really what this segment's going to be. So the first one that I'm going to include is the Baltimore Ravens, and that is at 12-1 odds to win the Super Bowl. And I'm going to say this straight from the jump. I think they are massively overrated. The fact that the Baltimore Ravens is 12-1, considering what they've lost this offseason, the fact that Lamar Jackson is currently being everyone's kind of figuring out Lamar. They're kind of seeing what his exploits have been out there in Baltimore. So I think that they're being very overrated at 12-1 odds. That means they're among the favorites to win the Super Bowl. Dallas, you agree or disagree?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, I think 12-1 odds to make the playoffs would be fair. I think they're in the same boat as Green Bay. And, if we want to say New England as well, I think they're all just a playoff team. They're playoff contenders. But once you get to that point, I don't think any of those teams, really, if we're being realistic, have the capability, especially the Ravens, to play with the big boys. I mean, we've seen it in the postseason, much like the Saints always fall short too. They lost Willie Snead, and they got Sammy Watkins, because no big name receivers want to go to Baltimore because they know they're not going to be used on a prove-it deal. That's a bad idea for them, especially in that Lamar Jackson offense. And somebody told me Watkins is better than Willie Snead. Why? Because Watkins is the bigger name that people know because he was a prestigious first-round pick from Clemson. What did he do with the Bills? His only big moments are in the playoffs with Kansas City because he's hurt all of the regular season. He tears his hamstring all the time. Willie Snead is healthy. He's always out there. He's one of Lamar Jackson's go-tos. That's like taking Mark Andrews away from him. That's not an upgrade.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest problem with Sammy Watkins is people don't want to admit this, but he had one good season. And the rest of his career, he's been injury prone. He's missed games. Or as you said, he'll disappear in the regular season to make himself known in the postseason. So I will agree with you on that. And the reason why I think they're overrated is just the simple fact that Lamar Jackson is being figured out. The NFL, that after that first year where he was the MVP, people are realizing that all you have to do is just force him to throw deep. He can't do it. In fact, if you noticed in the playoff game against Buffalo, that's literally what they did, is they forced him to say, all right, go deep. Like, that's literally what Buffalo did, and that's why he lost, is because they pretty much, were playing a game of chicken, like, all right, we know you can't throw deep, so go ahead. Try it. That's why he had so many interceptions. So with Lamar Jackson, with the Baltimore Ravens, 12-1 odds, I have them in the overrated category. But let's stay in the 12-1. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams. Do you think that they are overrated or underrated, considering where they are? I mean, 12-1 odds, that puts them in the top 5 when it comes to all of the NFL. And I'm going to say, in my opinion, my angle, that they are a tad overrated. I mean, I think the Rams are going to be a solid team, but I don't think that they are 12-1 top 5, contenders to be winning the championship. What do you think?
I think they belong in the top 5 contenders. Uh, I mean, because you would have Tampa Bay. I think you'd have the Rams. You'd have to have Buffalo. You'd have to have, I would put the Browns in there. And I don't know if I would put Kansas City in there this year, but it's probably another team. But past that, I'm kind of struggling to name a fifth team if we're not going to put KC in there. Those are just the four teams for me that really stand out from the rest at this moment.
Yeah, and I understand that there's going to be people who are going to look at this and go, no, there's no way they're overrated. But I'm going to point out that this is what the odds are right now. Green Bay is 9-1. Tampa Bay is 10-1. Kansas City is 11-2. Baltimore, Buffalo, and LA are 12-1. So outside of Green Bay, which we will both universally agree on, is really not going to cause that much of an argument. I think LA, with them being 12-1, having them be that high up, I just have a questionable about that, because you have to understand that there's all these new moving parts and all these new things are being put into the organization. And I also understand that with them adding in Matthew Stafford, it's going to take time for them to build up that chemistry. Similar happened with Tampa Bay. It took them a couple of weeks for them to really gel with Tom Brady. So I have with the LA Rams them being overrated, but we are going to go down lower on the odds card because there are two teams that I'm really surprised are as low as they are, and that is the Tennessee Titans at 25-1. Now, a couple of weeks ago, here on the Sports Angle, I had Chase Hope from Tennessee Talk, and I asked him this question, and he actually said that they were a little bit overrated in that category. So I actually think that's interesting with that aspect of it. So 25-1, the Tennessee Titans, overrated or underrated?
I don't know. I think they're a tad underrated, but to me, it kind of feels like they're about where they belong. I personally had Tennessee as third place in the division this year. I think it's Indy's division to lose. I really like what they've done, especially keeping Carson Wentz clean. I think Jacksonville is going to surprise a lot of people. A lot of solid under the radar signings that they're not big splashes, but they're effective fits. I think Tennessee's lost too much. Tennessee's been figured out to a degree. We were saying that about Baltimore. What about the Titans? You just stuff the box and you take away Henry's running ability. He can't catch it out of the backfield, not effectively anyway. Tannehill is comfortable throwing, but he's comfortable off the play action pass, not off a straight 5-step drop, scan the field, find his receivers. To that point, he lost Adam Humphries. They lost Corey Davis. Well, now all he's got is A.J. Brown. They lost Jonnu Smith, traded Isaiah Wilson, the first-round pick tackle. Didn't work out. He didn't want to be there. Lost Adoree Jackson, got rid of Malcolm Butler. I think one of their safeties, Kenny Vaccaro, he's gone. They added Bud Dupree, but I just named a whole bunch that they lost. And then you think you're just going to slap the Bud Dupree bandage on that when that wasn't even really your problem, wasn't linebackers. You already had a solid core of that. Your issue is everything else I named, and then you just gutted that entire top team top to bottom. Seems like Vrabel kind of wants to rebuild it to a degree. So,
yeah, I agree too. I agree with that. I mean, them being overrated at 25-1. I'm saying that only because of where they are in the odds. If they were, 40-1, if they were 50-1, I would completely understand. Them being 25-1, I have them being overrated, similar to the Rams. If they were like 20-1, if they were 22-1, I would put them there, but not 12-1. And then the next team before we go to break here on the Sports Angle, I have to do it because you have them behind you. The New England Patriots, 30-1 odds to win the Super Bowl. Is that overrated or underrated?
Am I a homer if I say that's severely underrated? We're not talking just underrated. We're talking severely, way down, like 10 feet below ground underrated.
I mean, you can make that argument, but give us like more of a reason for why that would be severely overrated at 30-1 odds to win the Super Bowl.
I mean, okay, people are going to point out that they went 7-9 last year. Okay, so the record is a fair assessment. Well, here's what I think a lot of people fail to realize, including these talking heads in the media and from a lot of people that I talk to. What people fail to realize is they went 7-9 in the COVID year where everything got thrown off, where they had the league high in opt-outs, where they had practice squad safeties playing at linebacker because the guys were dropping left and right to injuries, not more than the 49ers, but some of the most injuries. Had Cam Newton, coming off an injury, hadn't played in 2 years. He admitted he was confused by the playbook half the time, so that's why they kept everything vanilla, and their O-line was in shambles. And these aren't excuses. The fact is, as a Patriots fan, that roster was the talent level. It reminded me of the early 2000 season where they went 5-11. That was a 4 to 5 win talent level roster, and Bill Belichick, in all his GM and head coach genius, squeezed every bit of talent out of that and got 7-9 record. And there was 3 games that they lost by 1 score, 1 player, 1 possession. They could have easily been 10-6. Then they couldn't make the playoffs. That's absolutely maddening to think. And they kept right with the Bills in that first game. They're going to challenge the Bills for that division this year because they plugged up every hole that they needed. People are going to say Cam is still the hole. I say watch him in a full off season, second year with the Patriots, full OTAs and preseason games with a revamped dual tight end core, which is how they used to run their offense in the early 2000s, and a nasty hard-hitting defense that doesn't screw around. Watch out.
This is why it's called Sports Angle, folks, because you're always going to hear angles from the best people in the sports world. I'm your host, Rachiele. We're here with Dallas Oliver from Scoreboard Sports out there on WBTN, 1370 AM and 96.5 FM. I'm your host, Rachiele. We're going to get back into our NFL conversation. It is Football Friday here on the Sports Angle. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Sports Angle, live in Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world. I'm your host, Rachiele. Let's get back into it. We're here with Dallas Oliver from Scoreboard Sports, WBTN, 1370 AM, 96.5 FM out there in Vermont. Continuing with our NFL conversation, and this has been something I've asked, people who are knowledgeable about football in the past, because I've always believed that if the NFL implemented this, it would A, have a lot more football players have jobs, but B, it also would create a kind of leveled out playing field. Now, what I'm talking about is in MLB, you have a minor league system. You have AAA, you have AA, you have single A. In the NFL, they don't really have that. The NFL really doesn't have a minor league system. Yes, people are going to make the argument that NFL Europe was their attempt at a developmental league, and there has been leagues like the UFL and leagues like the AAF who tried to emerge into an NFL developmental league sometime down the future, but it didn't quite work out. So let me ask, in your opinion, Dallas, do you think the NFL would need a minor league system to begin with? And if they did implement that, would it be in cities near NFL teams, or would it be in cities that have never had an NFL team before?
Well, I think it would be a combination. I think they will. And I think it would be for cities that have had teams but couldn't sustain a major professional team, or markets that really want one and they had them and lost them. So maybe St. Louis was interested in football, but they just lost interest in the Rams because the Edward Jones Dome, you had the issues with the financing and the leasing there. Maybe you have a smaller stadium built and because you now have the St. Louis team in the XFL. And I think the XFL has been working on a deal with the NFL. So maybe you would have teams that are in there. The New York Guardians would serve as a developmental team for either the Giants or the Jets, possibly the Bills. Teams that are already kind of near St. Louis would serve for a new St. Louis team another way. And maybe some smaller markets. They've heard things like maybe a beach town. I've heard Virginia Beach has said they would like a team, or you could possibly have a team in Vermont or something like that. But I think if you could merge the XFL in there with teams that are already near pro ones and then stick some other ones in there, that would be really, really cool, because it would be a way for your undrafted free agents that don't get signed. If the teams sign a lot of them, rather than having to cut them and they don't get to play again, they can send them over to these other teams, and it gives the fans a way to see them before they make it big, if they do.
As we're talking about the possibility of a developmental system in the NFL, I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. We're here with Dallas Oliver from Scoreboard Sports. Now, I actually want to take a similar approach to what the NBA has done with the G League. For anyone who's kept up with that, these high school players, if they don't want to play college football, or college basketball, they can go to the G League, make money, and then declare for the draft the next year. I actually think that would be a really smart idea for the NFL. I mean, there has been kids that have decided to forego college and join the XFL. We saw that last year with the St. Louis Battlehawks. They had a couple of kids who actually got drafted into the NFL after being with the XFL. So what about that with a developmental system? The NFL creates this developmental system, and then they implement similar to what the NBA did, where if you're a 5-star recruit, if you're a 4-star recruit from high school football, but you actually want to get paid and not just be a 4-year free student athlete like they do with Clemson and Alabama, you could actually go to a developmental league and make money and then declare for the draft 2 years later. What do you think about that kind of system if there was an NFL developmental league?
I mean, I think that sounds like a fantastic idea, because you have these players possibly getting redshirted their freshman year of college, guys like Mac Jones or Kyle Trask, or some of these lower guys like maybe Kellen Mond from Texas A&M. Say that happened to him. If this system was already in place, Mond may slip around 4 or 5 of the draft, but I think he's more talented than that. So he could have played for 2 years, and then this year he could forego going back to A&M or the draft and sign with this developmental league for money, play against other players that are going to go in there, and that possibly bump his draft stock playing against possible pro players up into the 2nd or the 3rd round. And I think it'd be a win-win for everybody.
I mean, it would be a win-win, and I do like what the NBA G League has done. A lot of college athletic programs have cried foul about that. I don't know if you heard about the latest news with the NCAA, but they're actually looking into fixing that loophole of allowing these high school athletes to not join college basketball. I think it's absolutely absurd, but we'll talk about that another time. And I want to very quickly, with this developmental system talk here on the sports angle, let's have a couple minutes left before we go to break. The NHL, I've always felt like, has the perfect developmental system, because if you are a veteran in the sport, you can sign a veteran's minimum or sign a 1-year deal that's a 2-way, and you can still play the game you love, and you can split time between the majors and the minors. With them having that developmental system in the NHL, it allows veterans to have a second chance at getting back to the NHL. And I feel like the NFL could be that if they develop this developmental system, create this minor league kind of system in the NFL. I mean, would you agree with that to an extent that if they created this minor league, if you're a veteran who's been in sport for 6, 7 years, if you get cut by an NFL team, this could not be the end. You could actually go to a minor league system and work your way back to the NFL.
Yeah, so somebody like, I don't know, somebody comes off the top of my head maybe a few years ago, because he's pretty ancient now, but Josh McCown around the time he was 34, 35, or Ryan Fitzpatrick, or even now you could have somebody like Chad Henne, one of the more serviceable backups, but those veteran backups don't get much of a thought. It would be kind of unique if they got cut or something, or they were injured and forced to not play for the year, for the next year to have that option to come back and show that they could still play, rather than sit around and sweat it out, wait for a team to pick up on them like Cam Newton could have. Different thought. That would have been kind of interesting. So I like that thought.
And then before we go to break, we have 2 minutes left before we go to break. I want to say with the XFL, there has been this rumor and speculation that if the XFL eventually decides to, reopen and the XFL really starts to build momentum, that the NFL will try to either buy the XFL, or the NFL will try to have them be a minor league system. We have heard about that in the past. So if the XFL does become a success, would you believe that the NFL would have a partnership with the XFL to avoid having competition with them moving forward? Or do you think that they would create their own minor league system and let the XFL do their own thing, similar to what the Arena Football did for many years?
Well, I think the NFL would look to make a partnership with them, because like you said, you already have the Arena League, and they are not partnering with the NFL. They're doing their own thing, providing competition to a degree. While these secondary leagues don't tend to provide much competition for the NFL, the AFL has been around in sustaining success. The CFL has been around in sustaining success on its own for a number of years. So I really doubt the NFL wants to have a third league possibly getting their own success. And like I touched on before, there are already teams in the XFL which are placed in cities that NFL teams already have and are close and have players that have served time in the NFL, like Matt McGloin and
Christian
Cardell
Hackenberg
Jones and
people like that.
Cardell Jones and guys from colleges that you knew from Ohio State. So I think they would do that. You have a basis to work with.
All right. Now, this is the Sports Angle. I'm your host, Rachiele. We're here with Dallas Oliver from Scoreboard Sports. Now, before I let you go, I want you to shout out all of your social media. I want you to shout out your show. Tell everybody where they can find you and what they can know about Scoreboard Sports.
All right. Well, I have a few social media, so we'll try to run through this. I am on Twitter. That is at Newton England 6. I know, clever, right? I have 2 Facebook pages where I make my own custom NFL video edits. For any Patriots fans out there, I have Patriots Nation videos, almost 6,000 likes. One of my videos on my other page, NFL Nation video edits, where I do Joseph Vincent style documentaries and player highlights, had over 200,000 views and was actually shared by Galen Brady, by Tom Brady's mother, most recently, and another video of that has 500,000 views, so definitely check that out. My show, WBTN 1370 AM frequency, we're moving to FM. It will be available on both. The FM frequency is 96.5. That's every Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. West Coast time. Runs for 1 hour. Call-ins are encouraged. Call the station if you have any questions.
And that was Dallas Oliver. I'm your host, Rachiele, live in Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Sports Angle, live in Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world. I'm your host, Rachiele. Let's get back into it. Now, to end Football Friday, I'm going to do a ranking of the top 10 general managers in the NFL. We're going to start from 10 down to 1, and then I will repeat the order towards the end of the segment. At number 10, I'm going to go with Mickey Loomis from the New Orleans Saints. Now, I understand that Mickey Loomis has been with the New Orleans Saints for a long time. I understand that Mickey Loomis has been with them since 2000 and in 2000. I mean, this guy has been part of the organization since it feels like ever since the beginning of the turnaround. And for that, I still have him in the top 10 because of what he did for the New Orleans Saints. Him turning around the organization, for him having this huge impact on what they did after Hurricane Katrina, Drew Brees, the drafting in the mid to late 2000s, them building that roster even though they were near the salary cap, them being in cap hell, and then eventually getting out of that situation. Like, Mickey Loomis has done a really good job out there in New Orleans, but I'm putting him at number 10 because for the last 8 or 9 years, he has not been able to get the New Orleans Saints back to where their promised land is. I feel like, in my opinion, my angle, Mickey Loomis hasn't been able to fill the whole potential of this roster out there in New Orleans. And I've always felt like he's actually held them back the last 8 years instead of moving them forward. But out of respect for what he did with the Saints organization and his longevity, I'm going to go with Mickey Loomis at number 10. At number 9 on our ranking of the top 10 general managers in the NFL, I'm going to go with Kevin Colbert from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, once again, this is a guy who has been with the Pittsburgh Steelers since 2000s. He was the director of football operations. He became the general manager, became the vice president. He has been a 2-time Super Bowl champion. And like I said, for that aspect, similar to Mickey Loomis, I have to acknowledge what he has done for the organization. But the reason why I have him at 9 is for that simple quote in sports: "What have you done for me lately?" The Pittsburgh Steelers started out on a great win streak last year and then faded out into obscurity quicker than a melted candle. Understand that Kevin Colbert is in the same situation as Mickey Loomis, where I feel like for the last 4 or 5 years, Kevin Colbert has actually been holding this team back instead of making them move forward. So at number 9, because of what he did with the Pittsburgh Steelers throughout his tenure, I'm gonna have Kevin Colbert be at number 9 on our list of the top 10 general managers in the NFL. At number 8, I'm going to have Jerry Jones from the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this is going to be a controversial take. I understand there are Cowboys fans who are going to yell at me and say that he needs to be higher. There are going to be NFL fans who are going to yell at me and say that I have him way too high. The reason why I have Jerry Jones at number 8 is because I have to acknowledge the fact that the Dallas Cowboys, they do make solid moves when they have the money to do so. When it comes to Jerry Jones and what he has done with the Dallas Cowboys, you cannot deny the fact that re-signing Dak Prescott was a great move. Having that offensive line be built to have a solid meat wall in front of Dak and with Zeke was a really solid move. Having Amari Cooper re-signed was a good move. Making all these draft decisions that they have made for the last couple of years, Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones gets a lot of credit there. So I have at number 8, Jerry Jones from the Dallas Cowboys. Some of you are going to say this is way too high. Some of you are going to say it's way too low, but I'm going to put him at number 8 as of now. At number 7, I have John Snyder from the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, he built that team out there for a good amount of time in Seattle. I'm not going to deny, and I'm not going to take away the fact that John Snyder has been with the Seattle Seahawks since 2010. he was a huge part of that scouting and that drafting and them building that Legion of Boom and building that roster around Russell Wilson. So because of that, I have him at number 7 on my list. But the reason why I have him lower is, once again, what has Seattle done for the last 2 or 3 years? Seattle has been the definition of great regular season, terrible postseason. John Schneider, I've said this on my show when I talked about 5 general managers that could be fired. I had John Schneider on that list because this world is in a what have you done for me lately scenario. And the Seattle Seahawks haven't made a Super Bowl since 2014. It has been nearly 7 years since the John Schneider-led Seattle Seahawks have made it to a Super Bowl. So I have him at number 7, yes, because of what he did with this organization, but I can't put him higher because when it comes to the Seattle Seahawks, the last 2 or 3 years, it feels like it's pretty much been on a constant, slope where it's just like they're here, but they're not really going to get anywhere higher. So at number 7, I have John Schneider from the Seattle Seahawks. At number 6, I have another guy I had on my list of general managers that could be fired, and that is Howie Roseman from the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this is the same situation as Colbert, same situation as Loomis, same situation as Snyder. I can't take away what Howie Roseman did for the Philadelphia Eagles to get him to a Super Bowl. I can't take away the free agent signings and the draft situation that he has had with this organization. I'm also not going to strip away the fact that Howie Roseman has been with the Eagles since 2000. He has been in administrative roles. He's been in executive roles. He's been the general manager since 2010. Howie Roseman has worked his way up, and I'm going to give him his credit. I'm going to give him his props. But like I said with the rest of the list, the reason why I can't have Howie Roseman in the top 5 is simply put, last year was a laughingstock for the Philadelphia Eagles. In 2019 to present, Howie Roseman has made questionable decision after questionable decision after questionable decision. So because of what he has done in 2019 and 2020, because of the really odd head-scratching moves that he has made in the last couple of years, I'm going to have him at number 6, Schneider at 7, Jones at 8, Colbert at 9, and I will have at 10, Mickey Loomis. So now we have the top 5 general managers in the NFL, and I just recapped who 6 through 10 were. After I do the top 5, I will recap the entire list before we get to the end of the show. So at number 5 on my list of the top 10 general managers in the NFL, I have Eric DeCosta from the Baltimore Ravens. Eric DeCosta, by the way, has been with the organization from day one. He has been with them in an executive role since 1996. Eric DeCosta is the definition of starting near the bottom and busting your ass to get to the top. And that's what he has done. And I respect the fact that ever since he took over as general manager, the Baltimore Ravens 2019 had an MVP in Lamar Jackson. 2019, when he first took over, led them to the best record in the NFL. 2020, Baltimore Ravens stepped back a bit, but still were a playoff team. He was executive of the year in 2020, and I respect what Eric DeCosta has done. Let's also talk about the fact that Eric DeCosta has had a role in drafting players like Ed Reed, like Terrell Suggs, like Bart Scott. He has drafted guys like Marshall Yanda, Ben Grubbs, C.J. Mosley. Pretty much all of the guys that were drafted from the Baltimore Ravens from 2003 to 2011, that was Eric DeCosta. So I have him at number 5 when it comes to the top 10 general managers in the NFL. At number 4, I have Chris Ballard from the Indianapolis Colts. I'm going to say this on record. I respect Chris Ballard. I say that when it comes to analytics, when it comes to a guy who respects and values diamonds in the roughs, that is Chris Ballard's MO. Let's also talk about the fact that he has cleaned up the mess that Ryan Grigson left behind in Indianapolis. Ever since Chris Ballard took over from the Colts, they have gradually made solid move after solid move after solid move. And I have all the respect for what Chris Ballard has done since taking over in 2017. So because of that, and because of what he has done to help fix the organization, at number 4, I have Chris Ballard. And now we're going to get into the bronze medal of general managers, and that is Brett Veach from the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I cannot be fair and I cannot be honest if I didn't include the Kansas City Chiefs general manager on this list. There is no denying that Brett Veach has been the mastermind behind the success of the Kansas City Chiefs. We're not going to sit here and deny that since he took over as general manager in 2017, he has made right move after right move after right move. I mean, Patrick Mahomes in 2017, keeping Andy Reid around when most of the fan base wanted him gone. Even during all the playoff failures, he kept his head up high, and he knew and he believed in this team. And because of Brett Veach and because of Andy Reid and because of Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs won their first Super Bowl in what it felt like 115 years. So Brett Veach gets a huge amount of credit for what he has done with this Chiefs organization. And with the Chiefs' success since 2017, you have to give a lot of credit and respect to Brett Veach. So I have him in the bronze medal when it comes to the top 10 general managers in the NFL. The silver medal, the second place, goes to Brandon Beane from the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, that's right. I'm putting Brandon Beane from the Buffalo Bills at number 2. And you might be asking yourself, Rocco, why do you have Brett Veach at number 2? What's the reason why you have Buffalo Bills general manager at number 2? Wouldn't he be lower on that list? And I say no. Because Brandon Beane is the reason why the Buffalo Bills are being successful right now. It isn't the Bagulas. It's Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott. Those are the two that came from Carolina, and they have been the catalyst for why the Buffalo Bills have been successful. Bringing in quarterbacks like Josh Allen, making solid free agency moves, bringing in Stephon Diggs, building from the draft when it comes to the defense. I respect and I admire what Brandon Beane has done. And I will say on record that if it wasn't for the guy ahead of him, Brandon Beane would be the best general manager in the NFL in 2021. Because Brandon Beane has turned around the Buffalo Bills. He has put them on his back, and they're the reason why they're being successful right now. And at number 1, I have to go with the hoodie himself. I have to go with the guy who has won Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl, and it is Bill Belichick. Okay, I can't overstate how much of a genius Bill Belichick is. He doesn't put up with crap. If you have a big ego, he will let you go. If you cause problems in the locker room, he'll let you go. He's willing to take second chances on people, but he isn't willing to put up with ego. And that's something I've always had respect for. And that is that Bill Belichick knows how to build a roster. He knows how to build a team. And since the year 2000, Bill Belichick has been the top dog. He has been the head of the table. He's been the tribal chief when it comes to general managers in the NFL. So I'm going to give you the top 10 list again from 10 to 1. And I want your comments down in the comment section. of who you believe is the best general manager in the NFL. At number 10, we have Mickey Loomis from the New Orleans Saints. At number 9, Kevin Colbert from the Pittsburgh Steelers. At number 8, we have Jerry Jones from the Dallas Cowboys. Number 7, we have John Snyder from the Seattle Seahawks. At number 6, Howie Roseman from the Philadelphia Eagles. At number 5, we have Eric DeCosta from the Baltimore Ravens. At number 4, we have Chris Ballard from the Indianapolis Colts. At number 3, we have Brett Veach. We have Brett Veach from the Kansas City Chiefs. At number 2, we have Brandon Beane from the Buffalo Bills. And at number 1, we have Bill Belichick from the New England Patriots. You agree or disagree with the list, go to our comment section and let us know what you think. And go to our YouTube channel that you're watching right now. Click the subscribe button, turn on notifications. Go to our Facebook page, The Sports Angle. Have all the information we have on there. We make videos every single day. We make posts every single day. Stay tuned for that. Go to our Twitter at The Sports Angle. Go to our Reddit, The Sports Angle. Check out all the content we have when it comes to Sports Angle, including our website, thesportsangle.com. We are here Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific. And I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. Follow me on social media at Rocco Rachiele. And until next time, rock on. We'll see you later.